is going on, everybody? Welcome in to the North End Podcast, episode 155. My name is Zach Graham, your host here in the North End, joined, as always, by my good buddy. He's on record as my best friend. His name is Ian Michaud, and we call him E. He's sitting here on a Sunday afternoon, sweltering Austin, Texas, coming off a loss at the hands of lowly Sporting Kansas City. I ask you as I always do, how you feeling, my friend?
I mean, I'm feeling well. My Austin fanhood is not doing so great, and we got to discuss whatever the fuck last night was. Yeah, man, you know, it's super hot. It's super frustrating watching this team perform on the road. And we got a double dose of that. So, you know, as good as I can be in regard to, you know, just how I'm doing. But, man, it's ugly stuff. It's ugly.
Yep. So, of course, we'll recap last night's loss against SKC. Couple pieces of news to touch on as well, a little bit of the nonsense at the end. Before we get into today's episode, just want to remind everybody to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast, because it helps us grow the show, as does hitting the subscribe button if you are watching us on YouTube. You can also hit the notification bell on YouTube to know when a live stream pops up or a new episode goes live. And on this episode, hit that thumbs up, like the video, help us battle the YouTube algorithm overlords, which you can also do by leaving a comment and joining in on the discussion. Any and all of that you would do for us, we would greatly appreciate it. Wash yourselves clean in the waters of the North End. Let's take care of two news items first. One, actually, not so much news, just playing the waiting game here. It is June 30th. This is the expiration date for Moussa Djitte's loan to the Turkish second division. I personally expect news on where he's going to land tomorrow on Monday the 1st. But I think by rule, it would make sense. It makes sense in my head that he can technically still be on our roster until July 18th in terms of that compliance with the total numbers of senior spots. Again, I think we get this sooner rather than later, but I guess it could be a couple weeks till you know the actual resolution of Moussa and where he's going to play the next 6 months.
Yeah, just got to let it play out. But I mean, at this point, shit, I would welcome him back.
Right? Yeah. Can we get a 21st spot?
Yeah.
The other piece of news, and this one was a big positive. I think everybody loves to see this. Yesterday, just before noon, and kind of what Coach Wolff hinted at in his media availability on Thursday. He was asked about any potential FCTO call-ups. He paused for a longer than normal time before saying, I think, maybe we'll see. And certainly something was going on there. And what that thing was is Jimmy Farkarlun has been signed to a first team contract. Of course, Jimmy selected in this past December's MLS Super Draft second round pick, joins the first team on a contract through the end of the 2024 season with options for 25 and 26. He also signed a simultaneous loan agreement as somebody like Micah Burton or CJ Fodre has done, so he can go bounce between the teams as the club sees fit. This is, I did learn they gave us the official pronunciation here, and you may have noticed the little tweak. Normally I've been calling him Farkarlun.
Yes.
Farkarlun is the pronunciation that the club is giving us here. Of course, Jimmy was the 31st overall pick last year out of UT RGV. Had 2 goals and 1 assist in the preseason that had everybody, wanting more Jimmy time. 2 goals and 3 assists across his 12 Next Pro appearances. So now, obviously, an option on the wing, a depth option. And so congrats to Jimmy. Like, how hard he's worked for this, how much he's been wanting it, right? Like, and my first thought was, hang those jerseys back up in the Verde store, man. Because, he had the little photo op in the preseason with his custom jerseys. Now we can sell those for real alongside the first team. So, I don't know if he gets those options picked up. We'll deal with those when the time comes. But and again, I think what made this possible, he now has a green card. So not taking up an international slot, again, that is the supposed hurdle for guys like Val Noel before he was moved on. Alonso Ramirez after performing well in his 2 appearances with the first team. So just a supplemental spot here for Jimmy. So kind of worked out all around in the end here, it seems. And that's good, man. We got supplemental spots to spare. We need bodies.
Absolutely. Yeah. First and foremost, just huge congrats to him. It's been, a short, but what I would feel like has probably been a bit of a wild ride for him. You come onto the scene, you make a lot of noise. People start clamoring about getting you up onto the first team and starting to like play and everything. And that expectation comes through and that doesn't happen and doesn't come to fruition. And, he has, he's played well for FC for sure. He hasn't set the world on fire, nor has he been overly disappointing in any sense of the word. So, huge congrats to him. And hopefully it's the start of something special. And, it's all hands on deck right now. And it's just so weird to be like, oh, it's just so weird how a loss will just change everything in the perspective and just make you think. And like, we're talking about house money and rolling into this game and feeling really confident about it. And now it's just like doom and gloom. This is a bit of a bright spot, and happy to see him get some time last night. And, if we can just have him for 15 minutes, just anything where we can get a new body up there, some fresh legs, some speed. So anything helps at this point in time. So wishing him absolutely all the best. He's an exciting player. And, I'm looking forward to seeing what comes of this.
So Jimmy will turn 23 2 weeks from now on July 14th, wearing number 26 and active on the bench for Austin FC last night. That starting group, he was a little bit interesting to me. You see Johan Valencia back from suspension, but not in the 11. You have that same back line, Stuver, Gallagher, Leo, Brendan, and Biru. Then you've got Ring, Wolff, and Seba in the midfield with Hodder and Finley on the wings, Diego Rubio up top. We mentioned Jimmy on the bench, Johan on the bench, alongside double keeper Cleveland Bersano. Then Zardis, Kolmanich, Hedges, Jimenez, and Fodre. What were your thoughts on this lineup? I mean, this is the midfield we've been wanting.
Yep. When I saw the lineup and I saw that there was some changes coming and it was Valencia going to the bench, I was excited, especially given the fact that we were playing this SKC team who has been hemorrhaging goals all season, particularly as of late. And I thought that this was like the offensive switch that we could make to try to generate some more chances on the road that can try to mitigate the fact that we look so terrible on the road. And it's just such a stark contrast between what this team looks like at home and what this team looks like on the road. And then nothing, nothing comes of it. And it looks like almost a mistake, after you see the result and you look at it hindsight, and it feels like it was a bad call. And I was at the forefront, not that whatever the fuck I say has any sort of impact on lineup changes or anything, but like I was someone who has been calling for that to just give us a bit more of dynamic look. And, it just highlights how much we need Danny and that there is just no answer for making that up. At this point, it is just like it's almost like losing 10 because we have nothing to replace what he brings to this team night in and night out when he's out there on the field for us. So yeah, I was excited about it, and that's all well and good. The product was not good enough when we got out there.
Yeah. I'd spent the last 2 games calling for Johan. I mean, I said last week I was excited that he was going to be suspended because then it forced us to have this, what I perceived as a more connected midfield, being able to progress the ball, right? And that was just not the case last night. We can talk about those results, how it looked as we go through here. Let's start our recap in the 10th minute, and Sporting controlling all of the possession early on here, and their high press. We've seen this story before, giving Austin some trouble at the back. Right here, I just thought I noted Johnny Russell wins the ball off Guilherme here at midfield. Sporting is off on a 2-on-2 here. The CBs against Russell and Polito, and the official blows it dead. We got really lucky there in terms of just stopping that fast break because, man, even though we've got 2 guys back, advantage Polito and Russell there. And man, I thought Philip Dusic, I believe or Dujic is the head official from last night. I didn't think he was very good.
Nope.
And I thought it benefited us more often than not.
Yeah, he was just inconsistent, and Russell was really on top of his game last night, and it starts fast and early, and the sloppiness of our possession is on full display. Our inability to break any sort of high press, even if you're a team that's not very skilled at it, it still works against us. I don't want to go 10 times out of 10 because almost nothing is absolute, but it's about a 9.9 out of 10 where you just put this high press on us, particularly when Danny's not in the picture, and we crumble.
Yeah. And, it's not just being loose with the ball, right? And we'll obviously talk about a big instance of that in the second half, but like the passes too, just not crisp, turning over passes and I don't know if it's that the field, right, that those guys weren't expecting things to play as slow maybe as they did, but like you got to adjust at some point throughout an hour and a half. Right?
At some point in time. And also, I mean, like at some point in time, yes, you have to adjust. And also we just can't keep giving them this excuse. Like it is just who we are at this point in time. The passing is poor. It's just poor.
Yeah. 11th minute, Austin wins a throw about 10 yards above the box here, and Gallagher lines up for a long throw. And this is something that I noticed Sporting doing, and maybe I've just missed this in the past if opposing teams have employed this, but did you notice that they were guarding the inbounder on long throws?
I did.
I had never seen that. And on the rewatch, watching it live or on the rewatch, I didn't think it really affected us too much. Like on this throw specifically, good Gallagher throw kind of right in the middle of the two bodies wearing the green jerseys, but foul gets committed there and we go the other way. I just thought that was an interesting wrinkle. Like you don't see that. Like you see that in hoops.
Yeah, no, sometimes you do, unless you're Christian Laettner. Like it is even more confusing because like we are known for our long throws. Like we're not trying to get a short throw and then tap it back to the guy who just threw the ball in and then get a cross in. Like this is essentially the cross that we're playing. So yes, I am confused by what Vermees was doing there.
Yeah. I don't think it's the worst idea. I don't know.
I don't know either.
He really had to pull out all the stops last night, given their form coming in. Hey, it worked out for him. 15th minute, Austin breaks the press for what feels like the first time on the night. Gallagher charges up the right side, then cuts it back to Rubio, who swings it to Driussi in the middle of the park. He turns to face goal about 35 yards out, hits a pass to Hodder Obrion. Out on the left, Hodder takes 2 touches towards the middle, bends a shot that goes wide of that far post, but took 15 minutes before Austin showed any sign of life offensively, which again is not something that we've been a stranger to this year, but that didn't get things started. It was just a little blip.
Yeah, it wasn't like we understand and we know at this point that we take our time to feel these games out, understand that we're going to concede some possession here, and that ultimately we want to limit the opponent's touches inside of our danger zone, inside of our red zone, and then hopefully get some blocks and things like that. I thought this was a pretty solid attempt by Hodder, but it's just that's not his game.
Yep. 26th minute here, Kansas completely in control.
Yep.
Biru and Seba struggle to break the press here after winning the ball back, kind of top left corner of the broadcast angle there, pinned back against their own inline. Biru's clearance is chested down by Danny Rosero, and SKC keeps possession. They get clear down the right, and a cross comes in all the way from right to left. It falls to Tim Leibold, kind of right near the edge of the 18, and he has a hit with John Gallagher positioned right in front of him. That shot deflects off of Gallagher and bends around Stuver, trickling into the net for the lead. And man, like that's bad luck, but I also think we were due for one of those, just given how we try to set up, block all these shots. Like at some point, one of those is going to deflect poorly and go into our own net. And that's what happened there. So it was unfortunate, but again, that's the game you're playing.
Yep. I mean, it's just giving me Pompeo vibes. And it's just like you said, that's spot on. When you're playing the way that we're playing, the style that we want to enact defensively, you just raise the probability rate for these things happening. And it's fortunate for them, unfortunate for us, but it's our defensive style and structure looking to get these blocks and deflections will eventually lead to those things. And like now this is number 2 or 3. I know got Pompeo, got this one deflection. I think there's one more that
There's got to be one that
I can't remember, but it's just like it's part of this game and it's part of how we're trying to defend these shots. And you're going to have to live with them if that's how we're going to play.
Yeah. There was the Heinzike deflection right in the north end a couple games ago. I forget what team that was against, but anyways.
I mean, ultimately, obviously we can complain and moan about the fact that this is the deflected goal that goes in there, but it's not just this poor clearance by Biru here. Like there's multiple times before this where we have Ethan Finley not being able to control the ball or at least get it out. And at some point in time, I'm just like, if we have 9 guys behind the ball tight, then let's just I know it's ugly. Like we're an ugly team. This is we play ugly soccer. Let's just fucking kick it out of here. Seriously, just clear it out. We don't even, at least to alleviate some sort of pressure and change the field tilt. I don't know what certain guys are doing in certain situations where they're trying to get cute on the sideline, these little touch passes and everything. It's like, man, ultimately we're not going to progress the ball that way up the field and create something. So let's just get it out of this danger zone. And I know that that's like sacrilege for a lot of soccer fans. I understand that. I have also been watching the Euros. So, I get it, y'all. But it's maddening.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. 29th minute. Yellow card to Owen Wolff here after he kicks out Eric Tommy's legs from under him. And it looked to me like he was frustrated after getting fouled in a similar fashion a few minutes prior. Maybe certainly not as blatant as that one was, but this is where I started to think, and obviously it's not the first time we've or a lot of other Austin FC fans have discussed Sebastian Driussi and his captaincy. But to me, this is where it would be nice to have a leader on the field to go try to calm down the 19-year-old out there who is clearly losing his head. There's another instance later in this one where I think Owen's body language is piss poor. The body language here isn't bad, but I think you can tell, again, the level of frustration where he's getting outside of himself. And for me, this is where the captain comes in, says to the teenager, look, man, calm down. Let me deal with the official. I got this. Play your game. Something to that effect.
100%.
And that just does not come. Yep. And so, again, I'm not trying to sit here and blame anybody else on the team for the yellow card. But again, these are just like little things that you watch, the dynamics of a team between the players out there. And we talked about Seba after the LAFC match, right? Everybody giving him all the praise, all the flowers, as they should have for his performance in that one on both sides of the ball. We also mentioned that's what you got to have out of 10 with his stature, with his salary, wearing the armband. You're the guy that's on all of the advertisements for any Austin FC game that's coming up, right? This is the role that you have put yourself in, that you have accepted by being here, by requesting the armband, etc. And you can't, he is the one guy where there is zero excuse for the ups and the downs. And man, it's just like, again, maybe I'm just picking on him too much, maybe. But last night, to me, number 10 should have been in the post-game presser with the head coach. Not with the head coach, but after the head coach. You got to address stuff like this, man. Whether it's publicly, whether it maybe he's doing more of that leadership, whether it's vocal, by example, what have you. Maybe that's more away from the public eye, on the practice field, in the locker room. But I feel like we would see a little bit more of that just kind of slip out in the public eye at some point if it really was going on. And I have similar thoughts about certain things about Coach Wolff.
Yeah, I mean, heavy is the head that wears the crown, man. You're our guy. And we need you to be at the top level of everything you're doing out there for this team to be successful. And this is the start of a lot of things that I just feel are completely inexcusable by some of our players. I know that we'll get into it later, but
it's the next note.
So many times you're seeing these dudes just throw their hands up in the air. They're looking for someone else complain to and to moan to. And it's just like, we can't have this. We're not good enough to be having this type of dissent amongst the ranks of our boys. And someone needs to step in. And I don't know if it needs to be hey, shut the hell up and like, let's move on here, or just to be like we're going to get into it further. Obviously the comments that come out from Coach Slater about potentially benching guys, and the accountability needs to start with your teammates and yourself and holding one another accountable to a certain standard. And this does not come from Seba here. And you're right. You know, this is a 19-year-old player and Owen Wolff who's frustrated, and the frustration starts to boil over. Yeah.
And again, this play in particular it's the full picture of last night of the captaincy since it changed hands at the beginning of 2023. So again, here 5 minutes later, 34th minute, off an SKC throw in the Austin defensive third, Jake Davis flies into Alex Ring with like a high boot. And here Diego Rubio gets a yellow card for clearly saying something off color to Dujic, because he's going over to Davis to card him, and he stops, turns around, you motherfucker, yellow. Yeah. So now Diego Rubio is suspended for next Saturday's match. And like, so Davis does again get the rightful yellow for that. And man, I was like, in my head, this is where I'm at, is like, man, just like dip your head a little bit, take the boot to the face on the red card. Right. Maybe we have a chance in this one. But man, like, again, I know that Seba is on a yellow as well, but to my knowledge, any league, including MLS, they want the captain to go and talk and have those heated discussions with the official. So, like, if Seba's the one running up on the official there, maybe he does not get one. And again, regardless, he's the one that we should see running up there, and not Diego Rubio.
I mean, the ref called the foul. I don't know. Like, what is he saying that's so aggressive and just probably filled with anger, like to get to the point where the ref like literally stops and turns around and is like, hey brother, this one's for you. And you know, he's suspended. And it's just like, it can't happen. He's a veteran too, man. He's been around for years and years and years. And we love his energy. We love the tenacity. We love the dog inside of him, but man, you just gotta be smarter.
Off an SKC free kick here, 38th minute. In the offensive third, Austin intercepts the ball as it's pinging around the top of the box. Driussi steps in front. Austin off on a counter here. He plays a nice ball to Obrian near midfield. Then he stutter steps, allowing John Gallagher to catch up on the left. Obi plays Johnny as some reinforcements arrive. Then Johnny tries to find Seba in the middle and puts the pass behind him. Man, he had Owen overlapping him on the left with a ton of space. Again, could have got it to Driussi on target and on time. There was probably at least 1.5 other options there, and just the lack of execution, no shot able to be taken.
I almost vomited.
It was not a great pass.
It's inexcusable to me. It really is. This is a elementary school pass. This is horrible. It's not only is it a terrible decision because you haven't picked your head up and actually assessed the entire field, even when there's no pressure on you. Then you deliver a ball behind someone who has to stop the momentum, even though he wasn't like full sprint, like opened up, like he's running, plays it behind him. And it's just like, and then again, now you see Seba, he's getting a little more frustrated because this was and he should be, this is a dog shit pass. This is horrible. But when you compound it with everything else involved, then it starts to become a real issue. And I mean, I was flabbergasted at this pass. I couldn't even believe what I was seeing.
Yeah, it was a moment of exasperation for me where I was watching. We didn't watch together last night. But yeah, starts throwing his hands up. And again, it really starts to snowball from a mental standpoint. Again, just playing body language doctor through the broadcast. But 42nd minute here. Long ball over the top for Sporting. Eric Tommy gets a touch to it. Brad a little bit hesitant to come out and challenge it on the edge of the box. And man, this ball is scooting towards the end line with an open net. And it also looked like maybe Stuber didn't think Tommy was going to be able to get to that ball either, because he doesn't full sprint until, I don't know, he takes a half beat there. Yeah. Luckily, Tommy not able to get to it in time. His effort goes into the side netting. But at this point, you're just like, hey man, like let's get into the locker room here.
Yeah.
And try to regroup just down 1-0. Third minute of stoppage here, and there was only 3 given. You get a Polito yellow card for kicking the ball away. Peter Vermees rightfully upset because Driussi himself did the exact same a few minutes earlier and no card was given. So again, like the referee was not great and it benefited us more often than not.
I'm right there with you. And yes, it's just, we need to get to the locker room at this point. And like with that Stuver play, like Stuver's never one to not be going full effort, full tilt. And it's just like, man, if he's frustrated and at that point where it's like, he's not even going all out, like things are bad, man.
So into the second half here, and we can jump to the 57th minute. Oh. Austin still, of course, struggling to break the press. But this time, after, again, like you were describing earlier, a couple of these times where we're trying to be so precise at the back. And I know that that's how we want to play, right? Mm-hmm. And to Leo's credit, he breaks 2 lines with a really nice lofted pass that finds the feet of Driussi here. But again, the build up to that pass was just, we're clinching a little bit.
Yeah.
So Driussi gets the ball, turns quickly upfield. The counter is on here again, like the second, maybe third time that we've really been able to progress into that final third in front of Sporting's net. Seba takes it over midfield, then plays a nice little give and go there on the left side with Diego Rubio. So Seba now in behind, plays across to Hadar Obrian, who is in front of an open net, can tap this in, but the pass slightly behind him. I also think Hadar could probably himself do a little bit better to get to that ball, even though it wasn't the most accurate. I have in the notes here, both Seba and Hadar can do better. It should have been 1-1.
Yep. And we've talked about it. We've talked about it quite a bit as of late, where it's like, no matter how bad you look or how bad of a team you are,
right,
over the course of 90 plus minutes, eventually you're going to get your chance. You're going to get your shot, and we have to capitalize. I know this is a tight window to sneak this ball in there, and I know it's a tight spot for Hot Air to be in, but both of these guys need to be better. And again, the frustration, more and more palpable.
Yep. So right after that, 59th minute, you get a double change here. You get Zardes in for Rubio and Johan in for Ethan Finley, which of course pushes Owen Wolff out to a wing. And yeah, again, you let out a little chuckle there when Johan comes in. But again, man, it's like
not what you want to see right there.
It's not what you want to see, but we got nobody else.
I understand.
And if we can't connect from the defensive half to the offensive half, who gives a shit who's right there? Yeah. And again, that's where I will at least sit here as the person on this podcast who's been advocating for that midfield with Danny out of the picture this month. It did not work. And it looked like that's on Owen and Alex for not being able to handle the ball there and keep possession through that press and make the necessary pass up to a Rubio, a Seba, a Finley, right? And those guys not holding on to the ball, right? No hold up play from those guys. But oh man, it just I will say right now, it was a mistake to ask for that because I think we benefit more from having Johan in. And again, this is maybe recency bias, but we benefit more, I think, from having Johan's defensive abilities in there if Alex and Owen cannot get things done there. And we were playing both of those guys in a deeper lying position on offense to try to generate some of that connectivity, and they still couldn't get it done.
Nope. I mean, it's obviously a very small sample size that we have here in regard to trying and experimenting to get some sort of offensive chance creation going. But I hear you there. If we can't even do it anyway, then let's just put out the Punisher and let him just start fouling people. Like he was born to do.
Oh, I mean, he is certainly born to do that. 60th minute here. Eric Tommy steps in front of a Hadar Obrian pass and takes off on a 2-on-2 counterattack. Austin's got defenders trailing the play as well. And Brendan Hindsight, credit to him here. Great individual moment of defense to corral Tommy and block this one out for a throw, block his cross out for a throw. But if you go back and watch on the initial turnover, Driussi fucking stands there,
Mm-hmm.
makes zero effort to get back. And again, this is 60th minute. You can go back and watch it for yourself. This is a horrible look. It is uncaptain-like. And man, I understand the frustration. You have a right to be frustrated as a player where, again, whether it's you're just frustrated at the game, the lack of possession, the lack of chances, the lack of maybe perceived talent around you. It's fair for Seba to have that going through his head, but you cannot let it affect your play in between the lines while that clock is still ticking. Like, he just broke 2 lines with a pass to get it up there to those guys. So he's just kind of arriving into that space, catching up to the play. So again, I understand, but he also wasn't sprinting his ass like he should, like he has no energy to get back. And if you look, as the ball is turned over, both Ring and Wolff are 15 to 20 yards respectively behind Driussi in terms of catching up to this play when it is turned over. When Hindsight blocks that ball out for a throw, both of those players come into the picture. Driussi, nowhere to be found. You have to make the effort to get back no matter what happens every single time. And this is the same field. We saw him sit his fucking ass down, complain to the official while we have the ball trying to score down in the offensive third last year. So I don't know if it's something about Children's Mercy Park that just makes Seba go haywire. But again, I think it's fair to say that this was the worst display or the biggest lack of leadership, visible leadership from 10 this season. And for it to come 10 days after what we saw against LAFC, it just leaves me scratching my head, man. You have to be more consistent.
It's odd. It's odd. But yeah, I mean, I understand his frustration.
Yeah.
You know, he's having to drop so far back to get the ball. He's an attacking player. He's ultra skilled. He's uber talented. He wants to get the ball to other players and scoring chances and be able to score as well. But he has to drop so far back because we are so limited. And he makes that great pass, and then we instantly cough it up. But still, it's like the ramifications of it are that it's harder to hold other people accountable when they see you do something like this.
Exactly.
Because they can be like, oh, well, what about you there? And that just continues the deterioration of the trust. And like something that we've talked about consistently when things have been going well for this team is like, we're trusting one another. Our confidence is up. And last night, none of that was on display. Nothing.
Yep. No, I agree. When you're in that, when you are that guy,
it's what comes with it.
You're the eyes of your teammates, the coaches, the front office, and all of the fans. They're all on you at all times when you are in between those lines. And you cannot have games from that mental side, right? The body language, you cannot have games like that. It's such a setback there, in my opinion. And I would imagine there's going to be some talk about that, whether it's from the coaches, from other teammates in the locker room. Like, they got to circle the wagons here this week and figure that kind of shit out. And like, it's a lot easier to do that at home in front of the friendly crowd. But we're also, a week and a half away from going up for the Copa Tejas clincher at Dallas, a place we've never won. I don't know, man. They have to bounce back from this, not just from the result, but the way it looked. And I'm not just talking about the lack of chances, right? It's just the mental side of the game. The
body language, the moaning, the whining, the pouting. Just I can't do the pouting thing. Like, that's just, it's not who I've been when I played. I've never been a perfect player in any sort of, like anything like that. But
right.
Pouting is not. It's just I can't do it. And I think one thing I look to and like kind of like goes through my head when I think about this is I look at the Galaxy last year and you look at Pooch and like how fucking fantastic he is with the ball at his feet and being able to go and distribute, and how frustrated he was last year with that team struggling and not having guys behind him who were not only sound defensively, but able to distribute the ball forward. And now you see that on display this year and how much things look way better for that team.
Now he's chirping on social media.
Yeah. So now, right. Calling out the pundits there. But the moaning and the crying is bad, and then you get to this interview with Coach at the end, and it makes it worse.
Yeah, and we'll get there in a moment. You get a double change for SKC in the 62nd minute, a free throw and a free throw. I put a Frifa and Memo together there because our old buddy Memo Rodriguez comes in, Johnny's and Davis out. And then 64th minute, Johan's like, man, I got 3 more yellow cards. Let me get one right here. Yeah, just shoving Pierre after the ball was already away. Stupid foul. And again, this is where the captain should come in and say, that's a stupid foul. What are you doing?
Yeah. And then he turns around and gives the ref a little bit of business. And it's like, brother, like you're this man is a hack, bro.
Yep.
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah, dude. He just comes in and starts fouling people. And we don't need it.
Yeah.
Also, why can't we draw some fucking fouls on the I mean, I guess you have to have the ball in the opposing half to be able to do that. But like, we can't get one set piece generated here where we can just try to set something up.
69th minute here. Leo, again, we had just been talking about how he's been playing a little bit better of late, and we've been highly critical of him throughout the small sample we had earlier this season. And here, is it fair for me to say that this is uncharacteristic? I feel like Leo is typically pretty secure with the ball. Right here, loses his dribble near midfield. Sporting pounces on the turnover, and we kind of rush that loose ball. And Johnny Russell, I'll just put it nicely, gets past Biru here. And so now Johnny Russell is free, sprinting down the right side with the ball unmarked into the area. And credit to Johnny, Russell plays a fantastic ball across the face of net, where charging a Frifa on the other side can just tap it home for the 2-0 lead. But what are your thoughts on this play? Because again, I think there are certainly some mistakes made after the turnover. There's the turnover itself. And then the subsequent scramble trying to get back. I mean, this was the nail in the coffin, obviously, but what were your thoughts on this sequence?
I mean, I feel like I've seen this from Leo this season a lot. And
really?
I feel like maybe it hasn't led to a direct goal, but like there's been plenty of times where he's been trying to pass the ball out of the back or like control it, and I feel like he's just turned it over, like inexcusable. Like I don't know if that's just me being a little bit too harsh because I've been critical of this season, but like this can't happen. And then we have 3 guys bum rush the ball, or 2 guys bum rush the ball. It's either Jojo and Seba.
Yep.
And they both get beat, and then B-Row gets absolutely cooked and embarrassed. I mean, credit to Russell for a wonderful ball. He was great all night. They wanted it more, period. I know that's going to come up in the press, the post-game presser. They definitely wanted to win this game more than us. And this is kind of on display right here in regard to how we're handling this now very present threat. And the ball's wonderful, and Afrifa taps it in. And
and I think maybe we could talk about positioning or communication in the ultimate transition moment there. That is such a scramble.
Yep.
I feel like that would be a step too far, that we'd be being unfair to those guys that were back in that moment, just because none of our 10 guys in the field were expecting us to lose the ball right there. And then, like you said, we kind of compound the mistake by trying to, counter press and win the ball right back instead of just getting back into our shell, like I think we're kind of supposed to do, right? That's what we see us do the majority of the time, and you just don't right there.
I mean, I know that we talked about it before the episode and everything, and it's like easier to point these kind of plays out and situations out where it's like, well, this is how it needed to be perfect in order for us to actually get out of this situation without giving up a goal. But I mean, Johnny's pushed all the way up the fucking field because obviously we're trying to put some pressure on and trying to get something going to net this to knot this game up. But yeah, that's game right there. It's over at this point in time, and but it didn't stop us from complaining more.
Yeah, so we get Hector Jimenez in for John Gallagher immediately after that goal. Then here in the 77th minute, Owen Wolff brings a ball down in the defensive half, shielding off an opponent to win that ball, and then he turns upfield, kind of starts a little counter here, and he's fending off Johnny Russell in the process, who does foul him. Ref plays the advantage. Then Owen lays it off to Alex Ring on his right, and Alex Ring plays a pretty poor ball, turns it over. And this is where Owen Wolff falls to his knees in the opposing box as Sporting starts to go the other way. And so I'm not saying that these guys, Ring, Hodder, Owen, who just sprinted, 50, 60 yards should be able to sprint the exact same speed back. But again, it's that body language, and it starts with number 10 and ultimately also the coach, right? Because that's where your mentality is going to come from. I really hope that Josh, Seba, Ring, somebody, fucking Davey Arnaud, fucking the water boy says, oh, and that's a terrible look. Like, I hope that's discussed because that, again, it's horrible.
Terrible. And again, well, I'm bleeding into this presser and everything where we're talking about potentially benching guys. This is a benchable moment. We're taking you out of the game, and you might not get some run next game if you have a full team where you can have expendable bodies and things like that. And, it's going to be looked at in film, and it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to just drop to your knees like you just escaped the sewage tunnel in Shawshank Redemption. And you're like, oh, and Alex is there, and he thinks about shooting the ball, but come on. And then the pass is fucking terrible. And dude, it's inexcusable. And I can't hold 10 responsible for that. I know that things have been building up to this point. It's
right.
Everyone's frustrated, but again,
that's for me. It just comes back because is the 19-year-old not supposed to take some cues from the captain, the fucking 6th highest paid player in the league?
But I mean, a cue is not, don't drop to your knees.
I mean?
And again, I'm with you where it's we're at almost the 80th minute in this game, and he's not going to be able to track back after a wonderful take, and giving me shades of Danny there.
And where's that? Yeah, where is that? Because we've seen him do it very sparingly, but he can, and that's where it's okay, if you can do that consistently in the mid, not even all the time, right? Just 1-2 times a game, you can start a break like that. Yes, we need that type of individual. I think that's where when you hear Josh talk about being brave with our play, that's a perfect example. And we just don't see it enough, whether it's from Owen or a number of other guys.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the light switches that got flipped for Danny, where he was I am going to be brave and courageous and believe in myself to be able to break these lines and not turn the ball over. And you see it from Owen here, and he is capable of it. And even if it doesn't lead to a chance creation or ultimately a goal, it does change how they're going to defend us in that situation. And that ultimately over time can lead to some sort of success, particularly when we're just grasping for straws to find anything that can go our way offensively.
79th minute, Willie Agata comes in for Alan Pulido. So that's nice.
Yeah.
Then 84th minute, congrats to Jimmy. Farkarlun comes in for O'Brien. So you get about 10 minutes of Jimmy to close this one out. And I thought, again, he looked kind of similar to how CJ does. You can see some of that just raw athleticism on display. But then you also see a little bit of that hesitation because, hey, I haven't been out here a ton. This is, a lot faster than the next pro level, than the college level. So again, you get some of that in practice, but game speed, especially when the lights are on, just a little bit different. But again, congrats to Jimmy. And hopefully, again, we can see him kind of eat some of these minutes, hopefully in more wins, than losses. But, hopefully, again, that he's an actual usable piece going forward on the wing.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking about the fact that we're starting G at striker this next match.
I think that's another thing, and we'll obviously talk about NYCFC on Wednesday. I was thinking earlier today, rewatching, I think Jimmy is probably our backup striker next Saturday.
Yeah, he's going to have to be something.
Yeah.
We're not getting 90 minutes out of Giassi's artist.
Yeah. Shit, you might, but
you don't want to.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So into stoppage time here, you get a yellow card to Johnny Russell for taking out Seba. And then in the next minute, you get a ball served in by Ring into the Sporting penalty area. And then Rosero and Biru get tangled up. Biru goes down. Biru and Seba want a pen here. And again, it's just the last gasp of the whining. Where I don't think that was certainly not the craziest thing to call for there, because there is contact, Biru does go down, but in terms of getting a penalty awarded, I don't think there was much in it. But again, it was just the sprinkles on top, little cherry on top of just we're just going to bitch our way all the way out of here.
Yep. And, it needed to be nipped in the bud immediately with Owen. And I'm not saying that these things wouldn't have transpired or that other things wouldn't have
Of
taken
course.
place, but it needs to be cut out from the DNA of this team. Like, we cannot have this constant whining. It just can't happen.
49% possession for Austin at the end of this one, 14 shots to 2 in favor of Sporting KC, 2 shots on target to 0 in favor of Sporting. Austin had one big chance, missed it, of course. I imagine that was the Obrian chance in front of net.
Gotta be.
5 corners to 1 in favor of Sporting. Austin blocked 8 of the 14 Sporting KC shots. And again, 2 shots on target. They both go in. 1.86 expected goals on FOTMob's model for Sporting to 0.47 for Austin. Expected goals on target, 1.31 to 0. You can't have expected goals on target if you don't have a shot on target. And again, I think, expected goals on target continuing to come through for me as my favorite metric, because between 1 and 2 goals there, the deflected one at first, second one absolutely deserved. Sounds about right. And then go ahead.
I mean, like, at this point, we're used to these giant shot discrepancy stats coming in after these away games where you're seeing these 14 twos, these 15 threes, whatever have you. I see the 49% possession, and it's possession without purpose. It is non-threatening possession. It's aimless at times. And then on top of that, it's also sloppy and ugly. And I know when you're going to hopefully pull up these field tilt numbers and get some of these heat maps pulled up here. I don't know if that's what you're working on. But yeah, you see that. And, and like, you see that giant gaping hole in the middle there. And
yeah, I mean, look, this is so clear.
Insane.
They've got you pinned back.
Yep.
Right? They've got you pinned back. And then as soon as you get to midfield, we cannot go anywhere in the middle.
Nope.
So if you're watching on the YouTube, you could see the field control graphics that we're looking at here from MLS statistics and analysis on Twitter. And so it's not just that field control chart, but you look at the passing network. That is one of the more solid horseshoes of sadness that we have seen in a while. And what's crazy, man, is like, I didn't even feel like we were in the horseshoe of sadness last night because we couldn't possess the fucking ball.
Yeah, because the passes were so terrible.
And that's not even a passing network. That's just a jumble of 10 guys near midfield, but in our half.
Yep. Again, like I said, aimless possession. I need to see 10 start uncorking some shots.
Sure.
Like, I just like, fuck it, dude. Like, we're going bowling. All right. Yeah. Like, let these things rip from outside the 18. If you're that frustrated to the point where it's like, I've been giving you these passes, I've been distributing to other guys, and then the ball is being turned over, or I'm trying to receive a pass back and it's behind me, then shoot it. Like, let's let a couple things rip and see what happens. Maybe we get a deflection. Maybe something happens. Yep. Keeper fucks up. Like, it's not like, I always forget this keeper's name.
Tim Melia.
I always want to say Minnie for some reason. But yes, it's like, he's not some sort of world-class keeper that's like going to be on top of everything. So I want to see 10 uncork some shots here more, but you can't even uncork some shots when this is the type of distribution network that you're seeing from the team.
Depending on where you look, and if you look on these graphics, there is a field tilt in favor of Sporting KC that exceeds 86%. Wow. I typically look at the possession numbers from FBref for field tilt. So FBref has it at 80.7% field tilt. Regardless of which number, that is the highest that I can remember seeing in any Austin FC match. Again, I admittedly was not looking at field tilt numbers back in 2021. So it doesn't surprise me if there are a handful of matches that are similar in terms of that number. And again, field tilt is the percentage of touches in either team's defensive third for the opponent. That's how you find the field tilt. So again, even if there are, let's say, 4 or 5 others throughout our 3.5-year history, that still puts this in like the bottom 5 in terms of field tilt performances. And that tracks for me with what my eyes saw.
Yep. And I mean, in the article that I did before this matchup, just previewing this, I talked about SKC playing towards the future, playing for some self-respect and everything, because ultimately to me, them making the playoffs is a fucking pipe dream, but it's not for us. And then one team came out and really wanted to win this game, and another team is just inept at what they're trying to accomplish. And it was on display, and the better team last night on the pitch won the game ultimately. And when you play a team like this SKC team, who's what were they, 1-2-11 in their last 14 or some shit like that. Yeah. You just got to bury these teams. You got to punish these teams. So it's just inexcusable top to bottom, starting with the coaching staff, extending into the players, extending into the captain, who's not holding other people accountable, who's not holding himself accountable. And then on top of that, you add in the piss poor play and the inexcusable turnovers, the inexcusable errors. I thought, so like we've been praising these dudes recently for their defensive shape and form. I thought last night was shit because there's so many times in this game where you're seeing fucking like 8 guys in the 18. Yeah. And like, that is not good. Like that is not even smart, The
line is too low at that point.
Exactly. It's ridiculous. So this is ugly, gross. But we got 4 points out of June. And I'm going to feel good about that as much as I can.
we can lean on that. And again, you get out of June with those 4 points. You take a look at the table, Austin FC now out of a not just playoff position, but wild card position. Again, just like when we were sitting up in 3rd, 4th, 5th, and we were saying we still have to have the perspective that a bad stretch can put you down in 9, 10, 11 very quickly. And that is what has happened here. They get those 4 points again, huge, because you are still just 3 points back of 5th. And again, that margin could and very well may get larger between now and the league's cup break. But again, I think just trying to have that perspective now, looking up instead of down as we were, 6 weeks ago or so, is like, if you offered me 27 points through 21 matches, 10th place and 3 points out of 5th, 4 points out of 4th on when the calendar turns to July in February, I would have taken it. But with the further context provided, again, this last month was not good, even though we snuck 4 points out of there. And it was, we slunk out.
Yep. It was not adequate football to be playing. You get the very, very fortunate red card in the Minnesota game to go up a man there and ultimately get those 3 points. You have a fantastic display versus LAFC on the books there, but you sandwich that month in with the shit show that was Colorado and the shit show that was SKC, and it starts to paint a bit more of a picture. Obviously 7 points up on Dallas right now, so I am very grateful for those 4 points, because if that was a singular game, now we're really talking some dangerous kind of stuff here. And you move into July, and unfortunately Venezuela, and somewhat fortunately, are doing well, but fuck, man, we need Danny. We just need him so. We need him so bad. He's our second best player.
Field player for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's that you can make an argument for Stuver or Danny as second best.
Field player. He's our second best player.
Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah.
And speaking of Danny, again, like, just got the starting lineup. They're at Q2 tonight, right?
Yeah.
And they have advanced. Danny not in the lineup again. So, like, I would hope that they give him at least the token appearance at the end of this one. Hopefully more than that. But the fact that we're losing these guys, like Julio hasn't played.
Yep.
And Danny hasn't played.
Yep.
And we're losing. And look, I know it's about more than that, right?
Of course.
National teams need bench guys too. And the experience for Danny and Julio and anybody else who goes out on international duty like that, I understand. I'm with it. We're cheering for those guys to do well, and we're happy for them. But just from the Austin FC fandom perspective, and that's all I have, right? I'm an Austin FC fan. I'm not a Venezuela fan. I'm not a Costa Rica fan. I'm a fan of those players, only because they play for my favorite team. It sucks. Oh, it sucks. It feels, just from the Austin perspective, it's like, this is not for anything. We could be using those guys. We need them so badly.
So badly. We need
and
to
more
get
just
Roto.
Danny, right? Like,
yeah. Roto got to get on the phone with the Venezuelan consulate.
Yeah. Yeah. Get this man on the pitch or back to our team.
Yeah. Oh,
so, they look like hopeful again. If Venezuela continues to progress, they're going to get at least one knockout match. If they lose their first knockout match, which look, from an Austin FC fan perspective, you should want to happen. Because Danny, and maybe, again, if you disagree with that, that's totally fair. I get it. But what I'm worried about as an Austin FC fan is Danny still has to serve his 1-game suspension when he comes back. I'm hoping Venezuela bows out and he can come back, be on the bench against Seattle. Because do you think we're going to go get a result at Dallas with no Danny?
Yup. Oh
man.
We need him so badly, man.
I know. And again, like it's if Venezuela continues, right? Then great. Because it's good experience for Danny, and it's not going to lower his value, right? That he's a part of a team that is making a run like that. But just for my own selfish fandom, God damn, somebody knock these guys out.
Oh man. Yeah, it's ugly.
So I did want to touch on this, right? The press conference afterwards is frustrating. And of course, there is a contingent of the fans that no matter what Coach Wolff says after a game, win or lose, are not going to be happy, are going to nitpick here and there. And I'm also not trying to suggest that the guy has never, we've talked about it plenty of times where like, man, just say this, or why did you say that? Whatever.
Yep.
So our buddy Phil in the press conference, of course, last night, and tweets out, Wolff I'm only going to read half of this tweet just to set up what I want to talk about here. Wolff on tonight's match, he said, one team had to win, and for the other, quote, it would just be nice if we won. And I want to listen here to what Coach said and what the full context of this reply was, because I think from just that little snippet that Phil put out there, to me, it does not paint the picture of what was actually being discussed or how it was said. So let's listen to this and then just talk a little bit about it.
Position opportunities, poor decision, and poor execution, but we still got to generate more. Today was a team. There was one team that needed to win, and there's another team that looked like it'd just be nice if we won. And that was the reality of it. That team, Kansas City, was they're up against the wall. They have to win games right now. That's where they're at. And the approach from our guys from the standpoint of effort, attitude, and toughness missed the mark significantly. And it was all around the field from fairly early in the game throughout the conclusion of the game. We had a couple guys that really grinded and competed, but you can't do that on the road. From the offensive side, again, we certainly look different when we're at home. And I don't think I don't enjoy going on the road and not creating more chances for sure. It takes bravery to play. It takes better execution when you get into certain situations. And, obviously we have some limitations as far as what personnel we have, but we got to do better.
But I mean, doesn't that attitude start with coaching? I mean,
yeah. So look, first, the first point I wanted to make here, I just think the tweet that Phil put out was just not clear. Because what he actually said, he's clearly talking about what it looked like on the field from Austin's players, and not he himself saying it would be nice if we won, right? That's how it came off to me. And you read the replies to that tweet, that's how it came off to, again, there are people chomping at the bit to take it that way. Again, I think there was just a little bit more context there, because what he said there, I have no problem with. But then, to Phil's point, the follow-up is spot on. There are opportunities abound in that response for him to just add on, and that starts with me. And I have to do a better job of getting these guys in the mental space to go and execute those things, right? Like, so again, I don't take my first point for like disagreeing with what Phil's trying to get at here. He is once again teeing it up for Coach Wolff to hit this ball and just say something. It's almost like he's got an auto trigger in his contract where if he takes any of the blame, he gets fired. So like, and look, man, like, again, I know there's tons of fans who want to hear some of that accountability, right? And I'm with them, especially in this instance. Not every press conference, not every loss deserves something like that, because you can lose from some bad luck. You can lose from the players not executing or the players making individual mistakes. We've seen that before. But last night, again, we just spent the last almost hour talking about the mentality and the lack thereof from this team last night, and the weak mental state we perceived them to be in throughout the 90 minutes last night. So I just want to go back for anybody who says that Josh Wolff has never taken responsibility, because there is just one fucking time. So let's read this quote. I take responsibility for not having these guys mentally in the right space. We talked about it. We tried to emphasize it. We have some of that experience inside the group, but I have to create more tension in their minds, understanding what this game's going to look like. It's going to be dramatic. It's going to be difficult. It's going to have ebbs and flows. And we talked about that at length, but I didn't do a good enough job getting them ready. That's on me. So you don't need, you can take 8 different little snippets of that one response that he gave. And for the uninitiated, that was after the loss to Violette in the Dominican Republic. So about as low as it has been for this head coach. But again, why only that time? And why do you continue to shy away from it when, look, man, not everybody in that press room is friendly for Josh Wolff, right? Clearly, he perceives that he has at least one adversary in there. In my opinion, Phil is trying to help you here, man. Like, take him up on it.
Yeah, no, I mean, as bad as the game was, that's just that answer is just as bad. It's shit.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to go ahead and say that the players just had like none of the intangibles that we needed to go out there and actually win this game, and also imply that they didn't really want to win the game, then brother, you're in on that. Like, one thing we've talked about consistently in regard to our criticism and being critical of the coach is that this is not all of the issues with this team don't fall on one person's shoulders. It's a collective effort, and to kind of walk out of the door when things are a bit on fire and just be like, well, that wasn't my fault. It's poor. It's just a poor decision. And then you talk about the accountability that needs to be in place from the captains and in relation to the players. You got to have it as a coach too, man. And you got to be able to take it on the chin when shit is going bad and be like, look, like this, I have to be better. And that's like, that is coach speak 101.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. Like, you don't like, it's the first thing that should be coming out of your mouth more often than not when you see performances like this. Also, we can't keep falling back on this. Well, we're better at home. It's like, because you couldn't possibly be fucking worse at home than we are on the road. Like, we wouldn't have won a game. Yeah. So a horrible, horrible response from Josh there. And it's not people's job to be friendly to you in that context. Like, that's not their job, brother. They don't have to be your friend, and you don't have to be their friend. What you do need to be a part of is the taking responsibility for how shit this team can look and the ebbs and flows that happen and come with it. And players make mistakes throughout the course of the game. It happens on every team, every single player, in every single sport. But we can't just say all the time that we weren't good enough. We didn't have the focus, the determination, the character, the bravery, yada, 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 and just look at these results and take them on face value. So I'm with you. Phil was throwing you an olive branch there.
Yeah,
and
softball.
You could have had it, and you really fucked it up.
And that's like, do you disagree with the sentiment that I have here, where it's like the answer is fine, but it's missing that part? Because again, like the problem, again, just the way we perceived it last night was like, it was that mentality. There wasn't enough fight. He said it himself. Yeah. That we did not meet Sporting's energy last night. And again, the energy comes from you're just coming out of the locker room. Yeah. So that is where up until that point, you have control over it. Right. Yep. And so there are plenty of games where the players don't execute and do this or that. And the few chances they were able to generate last night, they didn't. Yep. And he makes mention of that. But also, hey, I'm the leader of these men. Yeah. So at some point, like, again, just from that one fucking quote from last March, he could just say, I have to create more tension in their minds, understanding what this game is going to look like. I take responsibility for not having these guys mentally in the right space. We talked about it at length, but I didn't do a good enough job getting them ready. Or just at the end of that quote, that's on me. There's 4 or 5 examples of just things you can just sprinkle in to your 14 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And just alleviate a little bit of it and probably make any of those players who see what you're saying in there, make that connection a little bit stronger. Because just putting out there that you have their back too, that you're involved, you, again, share in the responsibility. That is fair to say. But just like the hesitancy, the lack of ability to just say me more than once. Why is that a one-off?
I wish I had a good answer.
I know
for
you don't know. I
also just don't understand why we are not hammering home the point that our backs need to be up against the wall every single time we go out there.
Yes.
Because we're not that good. So like you have to have that. You have to have that going for you. So shit job from top to bottom, coaches, players, everyone. It's also just really peculiar and odd because you're coming off that Minnesota game. You're coming off a very solid performance versus the best team in the West in LAFC. Yeah. And then for this to just look so fucking different, it's very peculiar. I know I said that I was concerned about this game and that this Austin team can surprise you in really good ways and really bad ways. And it came to fruition here, man. And I'd be pissed if I was a player. I would. Yeah. I really would.
Anything else for you on this one before we move on?
No, get this shit. Get it out of my face.
Yeah. Well, FC Toe just kicked off out there in Lawrence, Kansas. So we have a lineup, but no match to recap yet. We've got Allstrup in net, Sally Maz and Tony Gomez is the center back pairing, Bonachera and Touré. At the fullback slots, you've got Alonso back in there wearing the armband, Irvin Torres and Babosi in the midfield with him. You've got both CJ and Jimmy starting on the wings tonight for FC Toe. So I like to see that. Get those guys some minutes. Pinot up top. And then, holy shit, we've got a full bench. Burton, De Anda, Anthony Garcia, Wolff, Abarca, Cervantes, Louis-Jean, Ariano, and Mason Miller. So go get it, boys. We'd love to see a win. That would cheer me up at the end of this long weekend here. An FC Toe victory out there in the Scared Money Derby. So we'll talk about that on Wednesday. And we can just push the nonsense there as well. Have not calculated the best ball scores from the weekend. Have calculated the Betsy there, and that can be a positive that we leave for Wednesday's episode as well. So anything else for you before we shut it down on episode 155?
Oh yeah, first thing I saw before I jumped on the pod here was the lineup, and I was like, "Yes, looks good. Like we're getting some bodies back. We're getting a little healthy." You saw Jimmy and CJ in that starting lineup, and I'm all for it. So for the first time this year, avenge us, children!
Yeah,
come on, the Rusty Swing Derby.
Yep, we could absolutely, or we will absolutely take that, and we'll see all of you back here on Wednesday for another edition of the North End Podcast to preview the upcoming match against NYCFC, to recap FC Toe's matchup against Sporting KC2, and to preview their next match as well. We'll have Best Keeper in the World, the nonsense, and I think a little announcement here from the North End Podcast. So make sure you tune in on Wednesday. Enjoy the beginning of your week, everybody, and we will do the same. Until then, he's E, and I'm Zach. Vamos Austin FC, everybody. Goodbye.